The Red Sword. This intriguing image was awarded in 2021 the Best in Class in Students Commercial category with a merit in the BC Image Salon and was also part of the collection. The following year it made it to National. For the first time in this show, we have a student. Actually, he's not a student anymore, he's just graduated. But since he won this image in the student category, I'd like to ask him how he was inspired to create this image, how he went about in the actual creation, and how it helped him in his craft and his recognition. So, Kieran, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Well, now, Kieran, I understand you have been winning competitions from PPOC since 2015. Is that right?
Yeah, it they used to have a youth competition that PPOCBC was hosting, so I began entering in that year. Yeah.
Nice. And when did you join the PPOC?
I didn't actually officially join until last year, earlier last year. But prior to that, as you said, I started entering into competitions when they were doing a youth competition, 2015, and then kind of until they stopped doing it. And as my dad, who's a photographer and involved with PPOC pretty heavily, I was always from 2015 and on helping out with the judging and just sort of some volunteer work with the organization, but didn't officially become a member until last year.
Good. So you have a background in athletics, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, did a lot of sports growing up.
So before we get into the image, tell us a little bit about yourself. You said your dad is a photographer, also very much involved in PPOC. And how did this all get you interested in photography?
Yeah, so he's my dad's been a photographer for I think about 50 years, maybe more. Um, but he's always been taking photos of me and my sisters at sporting events, games, practices, anything like that. So there's always kind of been a camera around. I didn't actually get my own camera until I was 14. I bought my first camera after I got my first job. And from that point, he kind of showed me the ropes, taught me how to do the basics. We did a few photo shoots together, and he also introduced me to entering into competitions at that time too. So that's kind of where my interest for photography really blossomed, I would say, is around that 2015 point when I started doing it myself. And then from there, after I graduated high school, he told me about a photography program at Langara. So ended up deciding to do that as opposed to going along to do a regular job that um, I'd initially envisioned myself doing. And I haven't looked back since. I've loved where I'm at right now.
So it's always interesting growing up in a photography family, you know. One, you're introduced to photography at a very young age, and which certainly does help in kind of channeling you into what you want to do. On the other hand, there's also a little pressure that, hey, my dad's a photographer, I got to compete, I got to, you know,
Hmm.
also reach a certain level, right?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was interesting. So my sister's also in kinesiology, so my dad's in sports medicine. So that was more so what I was more inclined to do. I thought like wanted to kind of live up to that sort of expectation and follow along with what my sister was doing. But um, it was it was nice having his support in doing something that was a little more creative and something that I think was more my speed and um, that went along with what I was interested in. So it worked out a lot in that sense, and I'm happy that there was an option to do that. But yeah, lots of expectations, I think, and I feel like I have a lot to live up to.
So let's talk about this image. What's the story behind this image? What inspired you to create this?
Yeah, so originally my the sword, so the sword actually comes from my friend's dad. It was a family gift of his, and as you can see, like it's very intricate, very detailed. There's a lot that's going on with the whole thing, with the blade, the sheath, everything about it. So originally I borrowed it to use as a prop. I wanted to do a creative shoot, sort of like a samurai, like a cinematic style themed samurai shoot. But um, at the time in school, it was kind of tough to do a project outside of what an assignment could be. So I ended up having to kind of adapt what I was doing. And it worked out that I had to do a composite product shoot, and I had the sword, so I knew I wanted it to be done properly and show off all the details. And that's kind of the where everything led to, is this image.
It was a school project that led you to this image, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was a composite assignment, so worked out that I
Uh-huh.
could do it for school, but it was definitely more of a passion project for me.
Very nice. Yeah, it shows. Um, so talk to about this image. How was it created? What preparation you had to do? You talked to us about the swords that you already had them. How did you get the idea to set it up like this?
Yeah, so I got some inspiration from one of my instructors, Greg Blue, who does a lot of product photography, and he always talked about um, how you could, light things in different ways and then blend them together. So that's kind of what I was going into this assignment with, just shooting everything in separate pieces. So I actually shot the
Hmm.
sword and the sheath separately and then in two different parts. So I'll show an example here of the file. I didn't work very non-destructively, but if we go in here and turn that off, you can kind of see I had to shoot the blade in separate. So yeah, so I we used a C stand and a clamp to kind of prop it up in one way, and then um, it was a little difficult with the blade because the blade was a little too small to hold in the C stand, a little too fragile. So I had to get my friend who was helping me out to just wrap the towel around the blade and hold it and try and make sure it was as much in the same angle and line as it was originally. But it was a very interesting process doing this assignment and figuring out how to shoot it, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and it was yeah, it was a learning curve.
Nice. So the
Hmm.
way it's been placed and how you have photographed this with a slight uh, gradation at the back.
Hmm.
Did you visualize this initially, or was this something that just developed as you went along and you experimented with it?
Yeah, so I didn't initially um, know what I was going to do for the background. I did want it to be
Hmm.
isolated. I wanted it to kind of have that like floating look to it. I didn't want it to be held by anything. So it did evolve
Hmm.
as I shot it and was editing it. But with the background, yeah, I that was all done within Photoshop as well, which you can
Okay.
kind of tell there's quite a bit of banding, which was a struggle to get rid of. But yeah, I wanted it to just kind of be a standout sort of product, if that makes sense. I just wanted it to really have a punch to it, and be able to
Mm-hmm.
highlight all the details that were on that blade and the sheath.
Nice. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. How you shot this? You said you set it up on a C clamp. What was the background used? How did you light it? And then take us through the way you created it in post.
Yeah, so putting it together wasn't, from what I remember, it wasn't too intense to do. I just kind of took aspects of each part that I liked. So you can see along here with this original picture of the blade. That was kind of the base that I took, and I did that just because there's a good strong outline of the blade itself, and you kind of at least
Mm-hmm.
see details of the engraving along there as well. So drawing from this, I was able to take other aspects that I liked, highlights and everything like that. So I did start off by just completely getting rid of the background and just highlighting the blade itself.
When
Mhm.
you photographed this, the background, did you keep it black?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's part of where it was evolving from. So I wasn't sure with the background. I think I was originally gonna just like keep part of the background in, but I ended up just like cutting the background out completely. So yeah, I can see where I'm at with this aspect of it. I kind of just added in parts that were lit different ways. So I focused on the upper part of the blade at this point, and then a little bit more of a fill within the rest of the blade and the bottom of it, and then filled in the tip of the sword there, the gold engraving, um, the sword base there, and then just did some touch ups to the specular highlight as well. Um, and yeah, it was pretty much that sort of process throughout the entire post production. Um, just adding in little aspects there and there. It ended up being a pretty fun experience, just finding a way to angle the blade in a perfect sense, and having all the shots line up the way they did. It was pretty well. I would say kind of lucky at the time, but it was lucky. It was good, but
I think half the fun of product illustration is trying to MacGyver solutions to
hmm
challenges that you come up with.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So you shot this in different, you lit it in different sections, and then you brought it into Photoshop, right? Into
hmm
Lightroom and Photoshop. Do you use Lightroom?
I
Okay.
do use Lightroom for this. So I used a phase one camera that they had at school, which was also really perfect. I think that was the best way that I could have shot the all the details on the sword and everything. So I originally did it through Capture
Nice.
One, and then
Okay.
just kind of picked all the files out from there, and then the rest was done in Photoshop. Yeah.
Yeah, Capture One is a great program. So talk to us about how you put it together in Photoshop.
So yeah, it from there it was just a matter of blending everything together and making sure everything lined
Mhm.
up. Um, I used a lot of masks and um, had to do some warping and liquefying if there were some parts that weren't fully properly lining up. So it was a
Mhm.
little tedious at times, but once it kind of got into the flow of finding the aspects that I wanted to use and once I kind of got into the practice of using the masks efficiently, it became sort of a quick process. But with all school assignments, I was on a deadline, so didn't have a whole lot of time to mess around with it. But ended up just kind of cutting the sword out and then doing the same with the sheath. Um, we were taught in school to not work destructively, as in like making files or destructive edits on files. But with this one, I think I kind of just slammed through everything and did it pretty destructively. So at least with the sheet, I can't seem to don't have the file anymore where it's all split up. But yeah, I put it together on this one on a Photoshop file just to create the background, and I wanted it to stand out, as I said. So I didn't want the background to be too light. I did want it to be a gradient, but in sort of a theater sense, instead of like a circular gradient or anything like that. So it kind of worked out in a nice way. I found and added in drop shadow and drop shadows behind the blade here along the hilt too, which I can do a little bit more showing of. Like just little shadows like that, just to kind of make it look a little more seamless.
Yeah.
But yeah, then from there, I wanted it to stand out. It originally didn't have any stroke or anything like that, but I added that in just because I was asked my dad's opinion, and he usually says add a stroke. So ended up doing that, and I think it kind of adds to the image in a nice way.
And what made you decide to enter this into the competition?
As we'd mentioned before, like I'd been doing the youth competitions when I was younger, but when they stopped that, I hadn't entered in a little bit. And when I started school, like the first year of school was not a whole lot of shooting stuff that we um, wanted to shoot as much. It was more about learning the fundamentals. So I didn't find I had um, very many images that I was super proud of that I wanted to enter before the 2021 salon. So when the deadline started coming up for that, I kind of just threw it out there. I was a lot more proud of this image and thought it was a little more worthy of entering in. But yeah, it was encouragement from my dad and other photographers as well to enter in. It's promoted at Langara as well, but I don't think a lot of people really pay much attention to it. But just because it's pretty busy with assignments and the course load. But I thought at that time I was like, you know what, I think it'd be good to kind of get back into getting into the flow of being a part of PPOC and entering in competitions again. So um, yeah, that's I wasn't much behind that specifically, but I just knew I wanted to get back into it.
Very nice. And now I know I have this book here,
Oh yeah.
which is PPOC PC 2021 Image Salon, and I have marked this page here. Your image was printed right there,
Mm.
correct?
Yep. Yeah,
Now,
that's correct.
sorry, can you see that? There,
Yeah.
there. Now, how does this make you feel? Did you, did it help you get more confident in your craft? Did it help you improve your craft? Um, how how did the competition help you personally?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped with my confidence at least. It's tough in school because I think photography is such a subjective thing. So with grading and everything like that, for example, with this image, I didn't get as good of a grade on it as I thought it deserved. And I know a lot of students kind of go
Mm-hmm.
through that, just because photography is, kind of a personal opinion, and an instructor's obviously
Mm-hmm.
going to have a personal opinion. So um, putting it into Salon and getting a result like that was really really gratifying, and made me feel good about what I had done, and happy to see that it was well received in that sense. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it kind of just it was a nice push for me. I think that was closer to the end of my last year, so it was nice kind of getting to feel like I'm on the right path in a way, and I'm doing the right
Mm-hmm.
thing, because there's definitely lots of moments where I was like, I don't know if I should be sticking around with this. Like, I don't know if this is something that I'm good at. So it was a gratifying feeling.
No, and I think personally, in my experience, whenever we don't achieve the target that we are looking for, and there is productive criticism, it's a chance to see things in a way that we have not seen before, and that has always helped me personally improve my craft in photography. Now, are you doing what are you doing now? Are you doing photography professionally, or are you working somewhere?
Yeah, so I'm currently the an in-house photographer for a fashion store in Vancouver. So I'm just shooting all the images for their
Nice.
website, which
Mm-hmm.
is part of the creative slump thing that I'm in right now. It's not a massively creative output for me at the moment, but it's photography, and I'm working full time, so I do feel very very grateful to be in the position I'm in. But yeah, working as a photographer.
If there is an aspiring photographer who's still a student, um, what words of advice would you give them in terms of, if they're thinking whether I'm not good enough, should I enter competitions or not? What would you tell them?
Yeah. Um, well, advice wise, I think it's really important to just diversify what you're shooting. I found getting into school, I really only wanted to focus on sports photography, and right now I'm working as a fashion photographer. So it going into school and shooting lots of different things kind of allowed me to realize, like, there's obviously a lot more to just what I'm enjoying, and it put me out of my comfort
Mm-hmm.
zone. So I think that's an important thing in your development as a photographer, is just taking the time to shoot lots of different things and figure out what you really enjoy shooting. But in terms of joining PPOC and entering in competitions, yeah, I think it's an incredibly beneficial tool to have as a young photographer and in your development. I mean, even just the people you get to meet, and the lessons you can learn from those photographers who have been involved with the industry for as long as they have been.
Yeah, now I know PPOC is Professional Photographers of Canada. I would strongly agree with what you said, that wherever you are listening from, if there is a local organization that helps promote photographers, join them. I know there's PPA in the US, and every locality has photography associations. Find out what is at your local area, and be sure to join them. Now, thanks so much for your time, Kiran. If someone wants to follow you or reach out to you, what is the best place for them to do so?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. Not incredibly active, which is one of my fatal flaws, but my Instagram is JKSO Photos, all one word. And that's probably one of the better places to reach me, but I also have a website, which is jksophotography.com.
Okay, excellent. I'll also put those links in the show notes. So, well, um, thank you so much. Now, for our viewers, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.